thank you all so much for being here. It's such a privilege to have you with us. This is a night for book lovers, and there are many people that are here just for you all. So thank you again for being here. So you all write female-focused, complex, beautiful books that are quite layered. When did you all want to write? When did you know you wanted to be authors? Let's start with you. We'll just go down the line.
I always knew that I wanted to be a writer. I grew up with a reading disability, but I love to be read to, and even now when I'm writing, I sort of feel like I'm playing with like my dolls in a dollhouse. You know, it's like I always wanted to tell stories. That was such a big part of my childhood, and one of my sisters wanted to be a doctor, and she became a doctor. One wanted to be a teacher, became a teacher, and I wanted to be a writer, and that was just what was going to, there were no other options for me. So.
My first love was writing, but I grew up in a really small town, and I didn't think I could be an author. Like, that didn't seem like an option available to me, and I didn't know what to study in school because all I wanted to do was be a writer. I ended up becoming a journalist, and so it wasn't until 15 years into my journalism career that I decided to write a novel. So I found my way there eventually.
Yeah, like Carley, I was in journalism, you know, and actually fiction did not occur to me until much later. I always knew that I wanted to be in journalism. I really thought I was gonna be reporting from war-torn countries.
Wow.
And now I write romance. So not a leap. But yeah, my son was diagnosed with autism when he was 2. And I remember needing an escape because I was running a foundation for families who have children with autism. I was a special needs mom and doing all of that. And all of my writing started really centering around advocating for families who had children with autism. And I was like, I just want something for me. And I had been a lifelong romance reader and had kind of abandoned it when you get to college and start reading the serious books. And I went back to reading romance. And it was so refreshing for me. And I was like, I am a writer. Maybe I should give this a try. And so that's how I ended up writing romance.
Well, one of the things I love about the trajectory of all 3 of your careers is it took a little bit. Like, you had other jobs, you did other things, and yet there was something in you that thought, like, I can't give this up. So what was it like? And talk to me about how you just got started, you know?
You know, I was like, I wonder if I could write a book. And this will surprise people, but the first book I ever wrote was Before I Let Go, which is book 1 of my Skyland series, even though it didn't publish until 2022.
What?
Yeah, I had abandoned that book. It was like under a bed somewhere. And I was like, I don't know what I want to write. Now, this is 10 years into my career. And my husband had read it. Only he and my sister had ever read it. And he was like, what about that book where the couple gets divorced? I was like, oh, babe, it's trash. It's trash. And he was like, you should bring it out. You should break it out. And I reworked the whole thing, and it ended up, you know, publishing in 2022.
Don't you hate it when they're right?
Oh my gosh, I hate it when you're right, and now I have to give him credit.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know, when I decided I wanted to do it, one of the big things for me was I joined a writers group, and they were like, just start writing. And like I said, I was running a foundation for families who had kids with autism, and I was working a full-time job, and I was a special needs mom, and I would get up about an hour and a half earlier every day. And then once my husband and son were asleep, I would stay up for like another 2 hours. And I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And the first book I wrote, I don't know if you guys know much about romance novels. They're usually about, what, 80,000 words? It was 230,000
Wow.
words. And the editor was like, this is a little long. But yeah, I mean, it just, once you get
poured
into
out
it,
of you.
It poured out. Yeah, I wish it still just poured out. And there's no pressure, it just comes out.
Yeah.
And people may not realize it, but like, the longer you do it, sometimes the harder it is because you start to feel like pressure.
I've heard that from a lot of authors, which I guess hopefully you know you're not alone in that. Carley, I read, and tell me if this is true, in my research that you wanted to be a writer, and your kind of gateway to romance, gateway drug was YA books.
Yes.
So you read everything in that genre, and then you read everything that you could, every romance book you could get your hands on.
Yeah, I was burning out professionally. I worked my way up in journalism as an editor, and I became a boss, and it was a very, very stressful job. And I discovered YA, and I had stopped reading a lot in my 20s and 30s. As an editor, I read all day for work, no time for it. And then I was like, these books are so delightful. And there's often a really nice little love story in YA books. So that led me to romance. And I just devoured everything I could because I was going through such a hard time that I needed it as an escape. And then in 2020, when I was working, my job just became untenable. And I got off, I remember very clearly because I was at the cottage at the lake and there was a landline and I got off the work call. It was most frustrating professional call of my life. And I slammed down the phone. It's like, we need landlines so we can slam down.
I miss that.
Slam down the phone.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah. You know? Yes. And I was like, I had always wanted to write a book and I didn't think I would do it. And I said, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do something for myself creatively. I haven't done that in my adult life. And I'm going to finish it by the end of the year. And I calculated, okay, it's going to be 85,000 words. There are X number of days left in the year. I have to write 388 words a day. I can do that. Like, journalists file far more than that a day, and I did the same. I woke up really early, and it also poured out of me. I finished it in 4 months, and that was my first novel. Fueled on
a book sold later. You're like, I'm glad I listened to myself.
Yes. It was so. I was so upset because I had done everything to reach the top in journalism, and I thought I had my dream job, and it wasn't it. And I didn't know what to do. And so it's been like so joyful, but also such a relief to find this thing that I love.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Heather, The Irish Goodbye is such a beautiful book of sisterhood, of complex families. You were a poet, and you are a poet. Yep. I guess you're always a poet. But this is your first novel.
Well, I do have some novels in the drawer.
Okay.
I mean, someone.
So should we bring those novels out?
I can totally sympathize with that, and it's as I'm listening, something that's striking me is I'm a teacher, I'm an editor, and I spent a lot of time with writers, and you both, I mean, your stories are so inspiring because it's really hard, you come up with an idea, and to sit and say, I'm going to get this done in a year, it's challenging. And when I switched from poetry, the thing I loved about poetry was, poetry doesn't take a year, or didn't for me, like it didn't take a year for me to write a poem or 5 years.
Yeah.
It was much more contained, and a novel is so sprawling, and but they say that if you can write poetry, you can kind of write anything.
Yes.
And I think that's true because you're focused on form, you're focused on the line, you're focused on language, and so the transition kind of allows itself.
And some of my favorite authors are poets. If we think about Sandra Cisneros.
I think of Ocean Vuong.
Yeah, Ocean Vuong. We've had multiple Read with Jenna authors too. The author of Memphis, Tara, Stringfellow. So many beautiful novelists start out in poetry because poems are beautiful, Okay, so all of you have strong female characters at the center of your books. And you write, you both are in the romance genre, but you have different storytelling methods, but these strong, badass women. Why is that so important to you all personally, to have these kind of layered, complex women at the center?
I really like mess and complication in novels and flawed characters. I was in women's journalism, women's media for the last 7 years of my career. And what I found is that these love stories allow me to dive into issues about women that I can tell through these stories. And I love reading about a woman with agency. Like, that is so important to me, that the characters have agency, but also that they're not perfect and that they're going through a journey. Our romances exist not in isolation. So they are grappling with, their families, their friendships, their careers, their own personal journey. And that's, the love story allows me to look at that.
Kennedy?
Yeah, I like writing powerful women, but also vulnerable women.
Well, isn't that one and the same?
Yes, I think, well, sometimes I think that there are these kind of dangerous archetypes about strong women, and I'm obviously Black.
Yeah.
When I think about the archetype of like a strong Black woman, like it's so dangerous in a lot of ways because it kind of, it flattens out like who these people are. It reduces our capacity for vulnerability, our capacity for pain, you know, and I think that what I love about the women I write is I tend to lean into the edges. You know, I tend to write, I always talk about writing on the edges. And what I mean by that is writing women who giving voice and visibility to communities that don't typically get it. So I like writing Black women, brown women, disabled women, chronically ill women, queer women, like people whose stories tend to be peripheralized. I like to move them to the center and show their humanity, because that's what these archetypes, that's the danger of some of the archetypes, is they strip us of our humanity, they flatten us out, and then people start to perceive you that way. And so what I like to do is to take those identities that tend to be on the periphery, scoot them to the center, and show them with layers and complexity and humanity. And even though it's specific, it's also universal. That's what I love to do.
I love that. I feel like I have to clap for that. I mean, we started our book club with that in mind, was that we wanted to help new writers and also writers, diverse writers who historically haven't always been published, who always haven't had a voice, you know, be heard. And that's been the most gratifying, amazing part of what we get to do, because I believe that by sharing, especially fiction, only fiction. There's been studies about it, and this is why I'm forced my husband to read fiction, is that when you're reading nonfiction, you're given the facts. So there's no room for empathy. You're like, here's this guy's life. He was born here, he moved here, blah, blah, blah. So there was a whole study, and Aimee is a writer whom I love, and I did a whole piece on it where men need, and I know this is a women's night, but that men in particular need to read more fiction because we need men to have more empathy, right? Yeah. So I love what you're saying. And I also think when you're stepping into the shoes of somebody else, you all of a sudden believe in a different perspective. Yeah. And you are open to more things, which I think we definitely need. And you can have conversations around those things. So anyway, thank you for your work. All of you believe in representation in your work. All three of you do, and different ways. Yeah. Why, I mean, Kennedy just answered this without being asked, but why does representation matter so much, Heather?
You know, for me, representation certainly matters. I grew up in the 90s in Long Island. I was gay and I couldn't be out. Reading was such an outlet for me to find connection, because I could not find anybody who looked like me, who lived the life that I couldn't even imagine for myself, really, to be honest. And when I discovered writers like Michelle T. and Jeanette Winterson and Michael Cunningham, The Hours, that book.
Oh, I love that book.
Such a beautiful book. That it changed my life. It allowed me to see myself in characters before I was ready to even see myself, you know? So that has always been such an important part for me. And in The Irish Goodbye, with the character, with the three sisters, it was really important for me to try to give them, you know, similar, I'm always, with characters, I'm always thinking, like, what is the problem right now for you? And like, where does it come from? And it always, you know, goes back. But to deal with those issues with nuance.
I really think fiction can and does save lives. And I've heard from readers who have said such. A book finds somebody at the right time and makes all the difference. And I think in the ability to see yourself in the pages of a novel, if you don't feel seen in your community, at home, is so powerful and special. And it's such an, I think we are so privileged to have a very intimate relationship. The relationship between an author and a reader is so intimate. They are in your minds, and that connection is so strong. And I think it's very, very powerful and very,
It's
very
so
special.
true. And I just, not to be like soapboxy at all, but I mean, we all know how distracting cell phones are. And I read like 1 million books and some on my cell phone.
Yes.
It's Speechify. But put your phones away. Make sure you're taking your kids. This is where I get soapboxy. But let's make sure our kids have the same opportunities that we had, you know?
Yes,
And
yeah.
so I have daughters that like have a mother who's a psycho reader, but I had a mother that was a psycho reader, and she had a mother that was a psycho reader. And I can still be like, hey, Mila, take the iPad out of your room, man, and let's read the second book of Tell Me Lies together, you know?
Absolutely. I have a friend whose 15-year-old daughter has become very interested in like reading YA romance and some romance books. And what her mom has realized is it's because her relationships in real life, especially with boys,
Yes.
and they don't talk in real life.
I know.
It's all like
Why
text
is that?
and Snapchat.
What is that about?
And so like this like in-person emotional connection, seeing relationships play out, they're learning about that. She is learning about that through books.
Yeah. And thank God, you know,
Yes.
she's learning about it through books
Yeah.
and not like, TikTok or, you know what I'm gonna say, you know? Like, we need romance novels. And somebody, I mean, my daughters read Jenny Han, that whole series.
Yeah, of
and
course.
of course, some of the book banners came after me. And I was like,
Oh,
y'all,
interesting.
I would rather my daughter learn about relationships from Jenny Han than YouTube,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And then she can come to me and be like, hey, Mom.
And I was gonna say, we're talking about like young women
Yes.
learning about relationships and romance, but I have so many women, I'm talking about grown women, 30s, 40s. With my last book, it was very surprising. I had so many people say, I got to like chapter this and I broke up with my boyfriend.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, honey, like, I didn't
make sure
mean
that's
to,
okay.
Like, and they were like, no, I just realized I was settling.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will like try to paint romance novels as like, oh, you gave them an unrealistic expectation, but that's not it. What you're seeing modeled is someone who says, I want a partner who will love me, who will respect me, who will esteem my dreams and my ambitions and my goals as important as yours. Like the bar is pretty low, you know? And I'm like, and sometimes when they're reading our books, they're like, oh, wait a minute, like what will I settle for?
Yeah.
You know, it's not like some pie in the sky thing. It's like, oh, this woman in this book or this person in this book is being respected and being loved unconditionally, is being loved through difficult times. Someone who's gonna stand by me and be loyal to me, fidelity. You know, these are basic things that a lot of women are not getting.
I'm like dying to know more about your process, but I want to make sure I get to questions from the audience. And I also want to hear about you. There was a special librarian, Heather, in your life, and I feel like librarians are sort of the unsung heroes,
God,
and even
indeed.
now more than ever
Yeah.
are putting up with so much to be these community
Yes.
healers and leaders and provide safe places for our kids. So tell me about this librarian.
It was just, I went to Catholic school, and this is, you know, I had a reading disability. They didn't have the resources to help me, and I was really struggling to read. Dyslexia runs through my family, but there was this librarian who would kind of give me books that were probably below my grade, but I could read them.
Yeah.
And I felt so great about
Yeah.
it. And then I had one of my teachers tell me I wasn't allowed to read those books anymore because they were not at my grade level. I left Catholic school, no shade on Catholic schools, but I left Catholic school and went to a public school and got the resources that I need, and you know, that it was a great experience. And actually, when I went to public school, that was the first poetry book I published in my, another great librarian who introduced me to poetry there.
How beautiful is that? Okay, so I want to get to some questions from you. I see people raising hands.
My name's Andrea. I love to read. I'm fortunate to know I have friends who have written books, and the one thing they always tell me is sometimes they're surprised by the ending. And have you all been surprised by the journey your character takes or the ending of the book?
Such a good question.
I don't plot my books. I mean, there's a happy ending, but I get surprised.
You don't plot your books at all?
Not really, no. And one of the books
Do you outline? Not
No.
Wow.
I know. I don't
You're
know.
a pantser?
I'm a pantser. Are you? No, of course you're not. No, I knew that. You know
You
what? I didn't
outline?
mean to ask that.
Do you outline?
I don't. I research. Like the book, we were talking about this before. It's our journalism background probably. I just do a lot of research and then the story kind of grows out of it. But I'm not like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3.
Yeah.
What about you?
I am a big outliner. Yeah, I love outlining.
Yeah, I set up a book to have a twist in it. It was like supposed to have this reveal, and I did not know what it was going to be until I got to the scene, and I was like, oh, this is it. And to me, that's part of the fun. I love it.
Do the characters kind of lead the way and talk
Yeah.
to you and show you where they want to go?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would say even though I'm an outliner, I like to think of it
Yeah.
as kind of like a blueprint,
Yes.
you know, and I like a living, breathing things. Things change. I would say with my book, with the character of Alice,
Yeah.
Throughout the entire story, I did not know what was going to happen at the end of her with the decision that she was going to make. So that was kind of interesting to have that experience, but I appreciated it actually, not knowing, just kind of letting her show me what was going to happen.
I love that. Some other questions. Okay, there's one here.
Heather, how did you keep the secret that you were going to be Read with Jenna?
When Serena, my editor, called to tell me, I screamed, and my older son came running down the stairs and said, "What's wrong?" And I was about to tell, I was so excited. I was about to tell him, and Serena was in my ear saying, "You're not allowed to tell anybody." So then they told me I could tell my wife, and this was like in May,
Yeah.
I think. And I didn't tell my therapist. I didn't tell my sisters, my mother, like nobody. So when I finally could tell everybody, I didn't tell them until you announced it on the Today Show. I was like, this is the news that I wanted to share. It was absolutely magical.
Okay, here, one question here. Hi.
First of all, Jenna, you are worthy of every ounce of praise you get. I am currently caring for my mom, and you and the whole NBC family make some very hard days very much easier. So thank you.
Thank you.
And speaking of making things easier, gals, as writers, we are taught one of two things. Either write what you know, or have fun and write what you don't know. How much, if at all, do you incorporate your own lives into your writing, or do you like to separate life from art?
That's such a good question.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
For me, I think it's kind of a balance. Like I think intellectual curiosity is such a big part of writing. So I do like to write things that I don't know. If I'm writing an experience I don't know, I'm really leaning into people who have lived those experiences to make sure I'm writing them responsibly and not doing any harm. But I feel like a lot of my life flits into my writing. Like in my last book, the heroine is caring for her aging mother who has dementia. And I literally interviewed my mom and my aunt because my grandmother passed away last year from complications of dementia. And in the second book in the Skyland series, I write about, obviously I have a kid on the spectrum who's amazing, and I write about these autistic twins, which was amazing to get to kind of broaden the spectrum of how people see autism and how they experience it. And also in the first book, the heroine is struggling with depression. I literally was diagnosed with depression while I was writing the book. I tell my therapist I owe her royalties, so I'm usually like, oh no, that never happens. Then I look back at the books and I'm like, pretty much every book somewhere along the way.
Gets in there. Yeah, my first book and my fourth novel, they're both set in my hometown, which is called Barry's Bay, Ontario. It's a town of 1,200 people. And I always start the set. I love setting, and my books, my ideas always begin with the setting. And so that first novel is really about how I grew up on the lake, and I continue to go back to places that I love, and yeah, like Kennedy, everything just kind of seeps in there. And sometimes you don't realize it's getting in there until you wrap the book and you're like, oh, that is what I was grappling with, this little thread of something. But yes, no direct comparisons in terms of storyline, but I think it all kind of gets in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting when you go back and you see like, oh yeah, that.
Just talking to myself.
Yeah, you're unconscious. I would say, for me, I'm one of 3 sisters, and so the world of the story, The Irish Goodbye, is very much the world that I came from, but it's absolutely not autobiographical. But when I told my sisters I was writing a book about 3 sisters, they were nervous, and then when they read it, then it turned to like, why isn't this not about us? So it's like, can't win. But yeah, I mean, it seeps in. All of it seeps in.
Hi, my name's Taylor, but I have 2 questions actually for you, Carley. One, I know after just talking with Allison Williams, it sounds like a very difficult process adapting a book into a TV show or movie.
Yeah.
I know you're in the process of doing that with
Yeah.
Every Summer After.
Yeah.
So how has that process been for you?
It's been so we finished shooting the first season.
Good job.
Thanks, yes.
Even getting to that, I mean, I'm working
It's
on
fair.
adaptations too. They're impossible.
It was a real learning curve. The book has such passionate fans, and I just for me figuring out what's important to me to represent, like what fights are worth fighting and what isn't, what is an adaptation. So that's been really interesting, and I'm so grateful. I had a career, like I was so glad that it was my debut novel, but I had a whole career behind me of learning how to work with people. So I was so grateful for that. And I think it's ended up in a really beautiful place. I saw the first episode.
Great.
Cried on the first scene.
Do we know when it releases or not yet?
We don't have an air.
Okay.
We're eyeing a date, but
Okay.
it's not released yet.
Okay,
So
okay.
yeah.
Soonish.
Soonish. Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. And if I have time, my other question was about the Florrick brothers. Are we going to see them in book form again or just on the screen?
She's.
Oh yes, yeah. So these are from Every Summer After and One Golden Summer. It's so interesting you asked me that question because my editor has asked me that question too. Maybe.
For all of you, for young people, children, teenagers, college-age students who want to become writers, what is the best advice you have for them to get started?
I'll say to read.
Yes,
To
exactly.
read as much as you possibly can. You were I have 2 sons. You were talking about how men need to read more, and our younger son, he used to love to read. He just turned 13, and he suddenly doesn't like to read now. So we're paying him to read.
Yeah.
Like that's like.
No, by the way,
Respect.
fine, because then it will become.
Yeah.
And also, encourage what they love.
Yeah. Well, and
know?
he's like super into politics, and he likes to debate, and so we're reading 1984 with him.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
it's so I would say to read. That's top.
And make it part of their habit.
Yeah.
I have to put the phone away from me. I'm sure as y'all write, you have to take it. They're meant to be addictive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
they will be addictive.
I have a lockbox
Yeah.
on my phone.
Yeah. So when you
Yes.
write, when
you write, you can order it off Amazon, but it's like a lockbox, and you set a timer, and it won't let you open it until.
but that shows
amazing.
like what we need to keep it away from our person.
Yeah.
But I think every writing teacher, I remember my 4th grade, Miss Cunningham said, she was like, you're a good writer, and nobody had told me I was good at it. I had I have a really smart sister. So school came really easy to her, and I was kind of like the funny one, and which worked out just fine. But she said, you're a really good writer, and I was like, well, how do I get better? And she said, read widely, read everything, and it was like the motivation I needed.
Yeah. I think my advice, I would always say read. I would always used to say just finish something. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Just finish the thing. But now it maybe applies more to people our age or young adults getting into writing. I think you really have to protect your mental health in order to write. It is very. You're just you and your thoughts all day. You're in your head. Like whatever you need to do to protect that and therefore protect your creativity is so, so important. And like at every step of the journey with becoming an author, it's as wonderful as it can be. It can be also very challenging, even once you're published. And so for me, I take anxiety medication, I have a therapist, I exercise, and I really think in order to be a healthy, creative person, you just really need to protect your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is read. That's because I was a voracious reader. Like, this was like before we were electronic, so I'm under the covers with a flashlight. That tells you how old I am. So voracious appetite for reading, but this probably is more for people who are like our age, older, who are getting into it. Right. But one of the things that, like, when writers just getting into it ask for advice, kind of the thing I say, and I learned this kind of the hard way, because like I said, I kind of stumbled into writing fiction. And when I first started writing, like at the beginning of my career, I felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was kind of just looking at the market and looking at what everybody else, what was selling and what people were doing. And I got through maybe like a book or so, maybe 2 or 3 books, and I was like, why does this feel so hollow to me? And I realized that I had not asked myself my why, and now my why is what, like, intention is behind everything I write. And I know when I talked about like writing from the periphery, writing from the edges to the center, now that is what drives everything I write. And it's given me so much purpose. And I think those are not the things that we are usually asking when we first start, which is like, how can I get published? And a lot of times you're just like, what's selling? What do people want? Yeah. And you're kind of pulled in the direction of a trend or of what is, selling. And when I stepped away from that and was like, what? And this sounds so grandiose, but it's like, what's the mark I want to leave? What is my lane? What is my space? What do I want to accomplish in this genre? How will they know I was here? And what is my legacy as a writer? And I know that feels so grandiose, but it really just boils down to, why am I doing this? And it felt hollow for me until I figured that out. And when intention became a part of my process, it had so much more meaning, and it felt like, honestly, I feel like now this is why I was put on earth, is to write stories that will crater in people's life and leave an impression, and maybe even be transformative, even if it's in just a small way. And that's very different than what's selling.
Yeah. By the way, that's such good advice for life. I mean, people are like, how did you build a book club that's successful so fast, even though it's been 7 years and it doesn't feel that fast? And part of it is because the mission to us is so precious. And it also helped with getting books, and with people understanding what we wanted was debut and diverse. It was like so imperative to what it is. And I think that is such good advice for whatever type of work, or what kind of parent or kind of partner or human you want to be. Like, live with intention. You can tell your parents were pastors, right?
They are, yes.
He's such a good speaker, man. I feel it. I'm going to church right now.
But my mom doesn't read romance.
Has she read your books?
She buys my books.
But she doesn't read them?
She's like, are they gonna be kissing? I'm like, yes.
A little more. A little more. Well, Carley, I read that your dad, like, somebody was joking with your dad about your sex scenes, and he was stood up for you or something.
Yeah. So, because my parents still live in a very small town where I grew up, and somebody had read the book and said to my dad, "Whoa, there's some like steamy scenes in that." Like, I was really surprised, and he was like, "What are you, a prude?" Yeah. So that I really appreciated that, because they know every single person they run into in town. Yes,
but they're proud. I love that. There's a million more questions. Let's do maybe 2 more.
How do your female main characters come to be? Are they born first in your heads, or do they end up being the product of the story that you want to tell?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a hard question.
For me, I was talking about intention. When I'm writing, I don't start writing a story thinking about a couple or characters. I usually start with discourse, meaning, what do I want to talk about? And as I start digging into the research and like figuring out what is the issue, what are the conversations I want sparked by what I'm writing, then I start asking myself, who's the best person to tell this story? And that's how the character forms. You know, it's like, what is her experience with this? How is she, what's her proximity to it? What's her experience with it? Is her mom, is her sister? Like, that's kind of character for me grows out of that. So that's kind of how they form. And then if it's a woman and a man, then for the guy, I'm like, now I'm gonna write a guy who deserves her. You know, that's how I approach it.
That's so good.
Love that. So I start with the setting, and then I often have these places in mind that I want stories to take place in, and so I'm trying to think of like what happens there and who is there and what the situation is, and then I kind of get the situation, and then I think about her and who she is, and then everything grows out of who she is. Like he grows out of who she is and all the family, but yeah, it starts with place for me. So
which makes sense.
Yeah.
Having read your work, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
For me, I definitely start with character, and I'm usually thinking about like what is happening in that person's life right now, and then trying to figure out what caused it. And that's about like going into the interiority of the character, but you know, trying to balance, like I don't want it to be too heavily reliant on a backstory. I want to make sure that there's a real conflict happening in the present situation that the character has to deal with or figure out. And for me as a reader, I'm always drawn to kind of like what is the hook? What is the question that I'm interested in and want to answer? So that's something I'm always thinking about with my characters as well. Like what is a decision they have to make at this point in their lives, and what is the challenge that's preventing them from making that decision?
Okay, one more here.
Hello. Okay, so Jenna tells me what to read every month. I'm waiting for the Irish Goodbye from the library because, you know, it's a process when you go to the library.
Yeah.
Off the top of your head, one book.
That was my final question. One book that you would love to recommend.
I just want to pick two.
Go two.
Okay, Stoner by John Williams.
Oh, yeah.
And Anna Karenina. Anything by Sarah Waters. Sorry.
Have you all read Buckeye by any chance?
I'm currently reading it.
Isn't it good?
Gorgeous.
Patrick
It's
Ryan's
beautiful.
book.
Oh, I love it.
My favorite book this year was Wild Dark Shore.
Oh, yeah.
By Charlotte McConaughey. This is not new this year, but I listened to the audio this year. Marco's Got Money Troubles.
Oh, yeah.
It's about a young woman who gets pregnant, decides to keep the baby and to pay for this. The child starts an OnlyFans account with the help of her ex-pro wrestler father. And it's a really funny, really smart book. And the audio is narrated by Elle Fanning, who will be playing Margot in the show, in the adaptation. And it's the kind of, like, my friend who suggested it to me, she's like, I just keep going on walks so I can listen to it.
I love that.
So that's...
I have two. One is nonfiction, and it's kind of for me like I have like a starter pack, you know, like if you want this, then this is my suggestion. And one of my nonfiction like staple suggestion is All About Love by Bell Hooks, which is like so empowering for women. It's really about loving yourself and how everything else kind of grows out of that confidence in yourself and building yourself. And anyway, so All About Love by Bell Hooks. And I will recommend a romance. And it was just chosen as one of Publishers Weekly's best books of the year. It's called August Lane by Regina Black. And in the era of Cowboy Carter, it is a Black country music star.
Oh, I love that.
It's amazing, but it's very, very layered. It's like, and I'm an audio girl, so that's how I do 90% of my reading. When you said speechify, I'm like, oh, that's my go-to.
Yeah.
But the audiobook is fantastic. It's like 3 different timelines, and it's all these different POVs, and it's about, there's a history that she's recovering from, and it's about family, and a legacy, and her song was stolen by the man that she loved, and he became a big country star, and then he comes back, and you're like, how is this gonna work? And they just unpack like all of this complex history, and it just does. So Regina Black is a fantastic writer. Like I said, Publishers Weekly just selected as one of their best books books of the year. So August Lane by Regina Black and nonfiction All About Love by Bell Hooks.
Y'all have to start sending me book recommendations.
Can I just say one more?
Yeah.
Because I want to do a contemporary one, The Safe Keep by
Oh,
Yael
yeah,
van der
that's a
Voorden.
beautiful
Oh, God, it's so beautiful. It's like post-war Holland,
Yes.
1960s, 2 women and a house. It's
so funny because somebody we work with loves that book so much. He kept being like, have you read The Safe Keep? Have you read The Safe Keep? And part of the hard thing about running a book club, but also trying to publish books now, is I can't really go back, but I was like, Ben, I promise I will read The Safe Keep. And it is so beautiful.
It's beautiful.
You all, thank you so much for tonight. I want to thank these amazing women that made this night so dynamic. Thank you so much. And can we thank the Virgin Hotels for this beautiful space? All of you for being part of our book club. It means so much to me. And there's so many people who helped tonight, but I'm just selfishly going to name a few. Missy Dunlap Parsons, who is one of the reasons I even started Read with Jenna. A big reason. Thank you for this, you queen here. Thank you all so much for being with us. I hope you will continue looking out for book choices, to follow our newsletter. Thank you all so much.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.